Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to another video from Average FPL. We're just going to do a quick review of Game Week 27 before we get into Game Week 28. And my wildcard is already active, so the plan for this game week and this video is to make as many changes that we feel are necessary to the team. And in the video today, we're going to be going through three separate wildcard teams that I think would be good options. But first of all, if you're new to the channel, please could you subscribe, like the video if you think the ideas are good, and yeah, so thank you for the support so far. Hopefully, we can continue it into the future. So, this is my overall rank as it stands right now, still inside the top 1 million places. And my overall game week rank for last game week is just inside 830k. Pretty good. At one point, I was in, I think it was like the top 10k for the week. And the reason for that was my previous free hit team for last game week, I trebled up on Southampton defenders, which really paid off on that Friday night fixture when they kept that clean sheet against Norwich. Now, the rest of the team did okay. Um, Not ideal what I would want from a free hit team. Son and Kane returned. I kind of hoped Fernandes and Ronaldo would do something against Watford, but of course they didn't. And I had a Marty on the bench who managed to get 8 points. Now, I also doubled up on the Burnley defenders who had a double game week, and I know you're supposed to go hard on the double game week players, but really 2 and 3 points is quite embarrassing, really. And the same with Weghorst as well up front. People were talking about captaining Weghorst, and really, yeah, they've got double game weeks, but at the end of the day, you're captaining a striker for a team that aren't scoring very many goals towards the end of the table. So I understand why, um, people want to focus on double game weeks, but as Kane and Son showed, there is lots to be had there in other players as well. So the fixtures going in for this game week are as follows. Now there looks to be some really good game weeks for teams like Aston Villa and Wolves and Chelsea. I would say they're the teams to target. If you're on a free hit this weekend, they are definitely the teams whose players you want in your squads immediately. For the 1 week hit, take it. Now, as we're looking at wild cards in particular, I don't want to waste too much time before I get into it. This is wildcard team number one, and it's probably my most favourite team out of the three, to be honest. I can still pick and choose players from each team, but this is my thinking so far. Now, Wolves and Chelsea have really good fixtures for the rest of the season, so I want to go quite heavy on their players, especially immediately. I think the rationale for using a wildcard now is that there's only 10, 11 game weeks left of the season, and you want to see a decent return on your wildcard. You don't want to leave it too late. My team before had quite a few injuries, quite a few players who weren't quite in the team or they'd fallen out of favour, and it just needed a bit of a revamp in order to get it back on track. I think that's why I decided to free hit as well last week, that I wasn't too keen on my team as it was. And then, I just needed a bit more time to see whether players would come back, and I don't really think they have. So I don't want to waste any more time in wildcarding. So, triple Chelsea, I think Burnley and Norwich away. If we're looking short term, those are great fixtures for this game week. I've brought Lukaku in for this team purely to captain him for this game week. After this game week, I think I'm moving him out if I go with this team because he takes up too much money and the bench is so thin. I've still got my bench boost, so I am aware of that I need to use that at some point. And whilst you could put too much pressure on the chips, I think if you can utilize it to be its best as it can do, then that would make sense. So yeah, Lukaku's in just for this game week on this team as well. I think you've always got to stick with Salah. I decided to stick with Kane as well, just because Spurs have some reasonable fixtures going forward, and it's the time of the season where teams are either pushing for top four, pushing for Europe, or they're desperate to avoid relegation. So I think teams like Liverpool, Spurs, Chelsea really fit that bill there as well. The second team we're looking at here is slightly different. Decided to go a bit more on Man City players. Now, Man City have good run as well. De Bruyne is the most dead cert player that you're going to have for Man City. That is most likely to play in their squad. And I picked Laporte there as well. Ruben Diaz is out for about a month. So I think, Laporte has been playing more regularly recently. And I think he's got a good chance of keeping that place, especially now. Looking at players like Gordon as, a cheap player, midfielder to get in. Everton have 4 games still to be rearranged. I know they've got a couple of blanks, but really you're looking at those fixtures probably leading to double game weeks at some point. So if you want to save yourself a transfer in the future, you can target those teams who have games to be rearranged. Um, I decided to go here with Schmeichel in goal. He is a cheap goalkeeper. He's only 4.8 million, and Leicester have good fixtures as well, starting with Leeds at home this weekend. Ben White from Arsenal. Arsenal also got like a good few fixtures going into the run at the end of the season, and he is such a cheap defender that it makes sense to get him in, so it will enable you to have more funds elsewhere. There's a common theme in this team as well, is that I've always got, even in the next team, I've got Salah and Trent. I think Liverpool are making a real push for the title, and I think you'd be crazy to ignore them, really. I know they're expensive, but I think there's that many good, cheap options that you can afford those premium players. I really think at the moment that you've either got your top hitters, your expensive players that you know are going to score you points, and you're looking down the list, and there's not really many good mid-tier options, I don't think, who you could put in your team and they would consistently get you points. I think there's players that you might target, as you're going to see in the next team, like Jimenez and um, the Watkins for Villa, who I think have good fixtures now and then, but you'd be pretty tough to try and rely on them consistently. Pookie, the same as the team before, got a double game week. I know one of those games is against Chelsea, but he's actually scoring quite well this season, and he's only 5.8 million, so I think he is a good choice as well. Looking at the third team here, also included Mason Mount and Reece James. I think it would make sense to have some Chelsea players. They've got such a good run in that I think it'd be a bit silly to try and ignore those options, especially with these they might have more game weeks like this as well. I always had a Wolves defender in my team. I think Wolves have great game week this game week, and also to in the future. Only 10 games left, 11 games left of the season. It's a short enough running to rely on these players. Gone with a Villa defender, kind of spread it out a bit more in this team. Dennis and Jimenez up front, Watkins as well, who was on the bench here but could easily come in for somebody else. And someone like Saka, Arsenal have, I would say, middle tier fixtures, and they're not conceding very many at the moment. So I went with Ramsdale in goal. So they're my 3 teams there. Let me know, which one is your favourite. My favourite at the moment is the team one. I think they've got um, good big hitters. I know the bench is really thin, but after this game week, I'd be taking out Lukaku and sort of beefing up that bench a bit, ready to use a bench boost in the next few game weeks. I've still got one free hit left. So I know teams like Chelsea have a blank game week. I think Chelsea actually have 2 blank game weeks in the near future. So I could use one of those free hits on there for the other 2 Chelsea players, and I've already taken out Lukaku as well. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask. I do feel like now is the right time to use something like a wildcard where you could still get that benefit of the rest of the season. It's still long enough to, make the most of the last few fixtures and get that late rise up the ranks overall. So thank you very much for listening. Good luck this game week, and I'll see you in the next one.